Welcome into another PFF draft recap. Today we're talking all about the Carolinas draft, and they broke it off in the first round with wide receiver DJ Moore, one of our favorite wide receivers in this class and one of the most dynamic weapons in the draft.
Yeah, it was an interesting wide receiver class. I don't know if there was any true number one star, but there was a bunch of guys that were kind of number twos, all in the same kind of area, bottom of the first, top of the second round, and DJ Moore was definitely one of those guys. He's a really intriguing prospect because I think he's got a very unique skill set compared to the rest of the guys in this draft class. His real trait is the ability to catch the ball, get upfield in a hurry. It translates to yards after the catch. It translates to broken tackles because he just breaks the kind of angles the DBs are used to taking. Kind of reminds me of the way Percy Harvin used to catch those short passes, just immediately turn upfield and gain more yardage than other people that way. I think he could be a really nice addition to this Panthers offense.
It's a really interesting pick because it represents a drastic shift from what the Panthers have targeted at wide receiver in the past. You look at guys like Kelvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess, even Greg Olsen, larger, bigger receivers who not necessarily separate a lot, but can win at the catch point and have big catch radiuses because Cam Newton's ball placement isn't the best in the NFL. He's a little iffy with his on-point accuracy. So it represents a shift in that regard because DJ Moore, 5'11", 215, shifty, after the catch sort of guy, a guy who can get open on his own. And I think this is the second straight year now where they've sort of going to they're trying to change the offense in terms of what the playmakers are. Christian McCaffrey last year, DJ Moore this year. They want more yards after the catch. They want more dynamic threats. So it's not just Cam Newton doing it all on his own.
Yeah, I think this might actually be an even better way, a method of doing it than they did last year, which was to try and increase the number of high percentage passes that Cam Newton was getting. I think this is like the third stab at this, and it's just get guys that can get open. Yeah. Forget the yards after the catch thing, though it's a bonus. It's let's find guys that can separate, make their own yardage after the catch, but give Cam Newton easier attempts because they're wider open. So DJ Moore can definitely separate. We've seen these skills after the catch as well. He tied for the league, or for the lead rather, in this draft class in broken tackles. Broken tackles after the catch. He made 20 guys miss with the ball in his hands on just 80 receptions. That's the second best rate of anybody in this draft class and tied for the largest number of broken tackles because of those things that were talked about in terms of being able to get upfield in a hurry, changing angles. But he's also got the ability to make those highlight reel catches that we've seen. He can go up, elevate, he can make big highlight reel receptions over defensive backs and just get open. I think he's going to be a big addition to this offense.
Yeah, the pick made a lot of sense. They've ignored wide receiver for far too long there in Carolina. In the second round, though, opposite side of the ball, they went to cornerback. Dante Jackson out of LSU, one of the fastest players in this entire draft. They realized that they saw James Bradbury take a little bit of a step back last year. They lost Darryl Worley over the course of this offseason. They need cornerback help, need it badly. Dante Jackson, coveted highly by some. We were probably a little low on him, though, than most.
Yeah, I really like Dante Jackson, but the grading and the stats just aren't quite there to back it up yet. I think his ceiling is what you're chasing here, is the potential that he could become a really good player at the next level, a better NFL player than he was a college player. What's really intriguing is that they double dipped on corner, second and third round. Third round they got Rashawn Golden out of Tennessee. And what's really intriguing to me about these two guys is they both played almost the opposite position for the body type that you expect them. Typically in the NFL, the short guys get put inside to play the slot because they can't hold up against bigger, taller receivers. And if you've got a guy who's 6'1" or taller, he plays the outside just by default. In college, Rashawn Golden was the tall guy at Tennessee. He played inside in the slot, just 60-odd snaps outside as a perimeter corner last season, whereas Dante Jackson actually played outside most of the time. He did play inside as well, 270 slot snaps in 2017, but I'm really intrigued to see if the Panthers reverse that in the NFL just because that's what convention dictates they should do. You put the tall guy outside and the short guy inside, or if they'll say, this is where these guys played in college, that's what's most indicative of how they're going to play in the NFL, and they'll keep them where they've been playing.
Well, it's also very interesting because they're on complete opposite ends of the spectrum athletically. Yeah. Dante Jackson ran a 4.32 at the combine, whereas Rashawn Golden ran a 4.69 at his pro day. Like, they're on opposite ends. When the thing is, Rashawn Golden actually had the higher PFF grade a season ago, so Golden's already been fairly productive as a player, but the high-end athleticism isn't there. Whereas Jackson hasn't probably been as productive, but the high-end athleticism makes you think that maybe if he puts it all together, he could be, you know, an elite cornerback in the NFL.
And Golden did that in the slot, which is typically where taller, slower cornerbacks struggle because you have to deal with guys that have a two-way go. That's where all those short, shifty receivers are. He actually played pretty well doing that despite those athletic limitations. I'm really fascinated to see what they do with these two guys. But Dante Jackson in particular, that speed does show up on tape. He's one of the quickest, fastest reacting cornerbacks you can see in this class. He's got incredible athleticism. He does challenge at the catch point as well, despite being just 5'11", under 200 pounds. I think they're actually best suited where they've been playing, with the shorter guy outside, the taller guy inside, but will the Panthers do that?
Yeah, it is interesting. And Jackson, like you mentioned, that speed really pops off on tape. Just any sort of play where he gets to read and reads correctly and breaks on the ball, he's beating the wide receiver to the catch point almost every time because his speed is so incredible. It really flies off the tape. So I like the double dipping at cornerback, two different sort of stylistic ones. So maybe you hit one, maybe you hit on both. Now, you obviously, hopefully hit on both, but sort of hedging your bets if you don't, because cornerback's such a big need for them.
Exactly. It's such a big need that they may need both these guys to start, or at least be, you know, starter and nickel, which in today's NFL is essentially starting. So they need at least one of these guys to pan out, if not both of them.
Yeah, and then in the fourth round, they went Marques Hines, the edge defender out of Ole Miss. He played edge there at Ole Miss, but only 235 pounds, 6'3". I mean, he's a project probably at this point, especially considering he didn't even grade that well for us.
Yeah, a lot of sacks in college, but a lot of that is a byproduct of just being a small, quick edge rusher.
Yeah, you're 235 in college. You're going to beat tackles fairly regularly just because there are a lot of spanky tackles.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of sacks, and it's not because you're a fantastic player. It's because some of these guys really aren't capable of pass protecting. And when you look at that overall PFF grade, just 70.2 last season, that is not a good mark. And in fact, none of these bottom guys that the Panthers drafted, the bottom 4 draft picks they had, none of them had an overall PFF grade higher than 80 last season, which is not the range you want to be in when you're projecting NFL production.
Yeah, and none of those last 4 picks that we had were actually even on our top 250 of the big board, which, I mean, maybe they know something we don't, but that's just where we have them right now. That's your Panthers draft picks. Make sure to go to PFF, check out PFF Edge and Elite for more data on this draft class.